Okay, so unconditional love, we hear that phrase quite a bit these days,
I
right?
really do. It pops up everywhere. Parenting, romance.
Even self-help stuff.
Uh,
And, we get it intuitively sometimes, like that fierce love a mother has for a newborn.
oh, absolutely. Or that early relationship stage, that infatuation where everything seems perfect.
Exactly. But taking that feeling, that kind of total acceptance,
Hmm.
and applying it to, well, everyday relationships
Yeah,
and to ourselves, that feels different, deeper somehow.
it really does. And it's interesting that our source points out that applying it like that to just regular adult connections is actually pretty recent in, common understanding.
Right. Not the concept of love itself, but this unconditional aspect in daily life.
Yeah. It suggests it takes maybe a shift away from the usual give and take we expect, maybe something more spiritual, or at least beyond just ego.
Mm. Which is exactly what we want to dig into today. We're looking at a path to unconditional love based on our source material.
And the helpful thing is it's presented as a journey, not just a vague idea.
Yeah, like with stages, a beginning, a middle, and end.
Right.
It makes it feel less abstract, maybe. More like something you could actually, walk.
It's definitely more navigable. And for you listening, especially if you're someone interested in growth and understanding yourself better.
Which you probably are, if you're tuning in.
Right. This could offer some really useful ways to think about love beyond, the usual conditions and transactions, how we connect with others and ourselves.
Okay, let's start at the start then. The beginning of this path. The source describes this initial phase as being, well, pretty tied up with our needs, doesn't it?
Very much so. Needs for security, affection, feeling wanted. The source uses words like passion, attachment, dependency.
Merging, romance, mutual need, liking, compatibility.
Yeah.
It sounds like those early days of a relationship.
It really does. It's that stage where love often feels like almost a negotiation. Are my needs being met here? What am I getting?
That constant back and forth. And we've all been there, haven't we? That desire to feel secure, loved, maybe with that little bit of worry underneath.
Mm-hmm. That underlying insecurity. So how do we move from that? The source talks about a middle path, a transition to a higher kind of love. What's that look like?
What's the bridge?
Well, the bridge seems to be about the ego starting to step back a bit. That intense focus on me and my needs starts to soften.
Okay.
And love starts to feel more like a healing force, something that actually connects people more deeply. Less about personal gain.
So less about keeping score.
Exactly. The source uses words for this stage like idealistic, calm, unselfish, giving.
Empathic, forgiving, and accepting. That sounds much more peaceful.
It is. It's moving away from tight personal attachment towards a wider awareness. Relationships become more about mutual appreciation.
And fewer defensive fights, the source says.
Right, because you're appreciating the other person as they are, not just for how they fulfill your needs list. It's more understanding, more empathy.
Okay, so that's the middle. Then we get to the end of the path. Unconditional love itself. This sounds big.
Mm-hmm.
Emerging from an inner spiritual source.
Yeah.
Tapping into a universal aspect of being.
Yeah, it's profound stuff. What might that inner spiritual source mean? Maybe it's pointing to that deep sense of connection we sometimes feel, Something beyond our individual selves.
Like a shared consciousness almost.
Perhaps. That feeling of deep empathy, maybe. It's described as more than an emotion. It's like a state of being.
Okay.
And here, you transcend your personal stake in things. It leads to pure compassion, a feeling of belonging to something much larger. The words are quite something. Blissful, transcendent, saintly.
Luminous, ecstatic, and boundless.
Wow. Boundless love.
It's amazing to even contemplate, isn't it? A love that's completely free.
Free from our own needs and expectations. And the source says at this point, love is self-sufficient. It's a state of fulfillment that doesn't depend on anything external.
Exactly. No more struggle, no more keeping score. It's liberating.
It sounds maybe unattainable. Like, is that even possible for regular people?
Well, and this is crucial. The source says we do get glimpses. Those moments of just pure joy or bliss.
Like watching a baby or a beautiful sunset. Precisely. Those aren't just random feelings. They're little hints of our capacity for this deeper state. It's more natural than we think, maybe.
Okay, that makes it feel a bit more reachable. So we have the path, but how do we actually, walk it?
Right.
Thankfully, the source gives practical steps.
Which is great. Otherwise, it's just a nice idea.
Right. Step 1, making contact with your inner self. Okay, what does that mean day to day? How does meditating help with love?
It's really about building a relationship with you. Self-care, meditation, like you said, reflection, just finding quiet moments.
Cleaning in.
Yeah. Getting to know your own inner world, thoughts, feelings, without judging them. Learning to appreciate yourself first. Can't really give unconditional love if you don't have some sense of it inside, right?
Yeah, can't pour from an empty cup.
Okay.
Okay, step 2. Honestly facing your inner obstacles and resistance. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
This sounds like the hard part.
It can feel daunting, for sure.
Yeah.
We naturally want to look away from our flaws or insecurities. We judge ourselves.
Yeah.
But the Source suggests looking at it differently. Those anxieties often come from old feelings that just need to be seen, to be healed.
So not judging, just acknowledging.
Exactly. Turning inward with honesty, maybe some compassion. And there are ways to get support with this: therapy, groups, body work, things like that.
Okay, so facing the stuff we feel isn't lovable about ourselves. That leads to step 3. Dealing with old wounds. Described as advanced healing. What's advanced about it?
It's about the deeper stuff. Even when we think we've dealt with things, there can be old resentments, hurts, scars that are still kind of active under the surface.
Yeah, things that still trigger us.
Exactly. And this kind of work, digging into those deeper wounds, the Source really emphasizes doing it with support.
Not alone.
Preferably not entirely alone. A friend who gets it, a mentor, therapist, priest, someone who can help you navigate it safely without getting overwhelmed. It can actually be exhilarating when you release that old stuff.
I can see how having support would be key there. Okay, step 4. Forgiving your past. We hear about forgiveness a lot, but the Source has a specific take.
Yeah, it warns against rushing it. Like, don't just say, I forgive, to avoid the pain.
So it's not a quick fix.
No. Real forgiveness comes after the healing, after self-acceptance. It's more about understanding that you and others were doing the best you could with the awareness you had then.
Ah, okay. So it's about perspective.
Right. That understanding helps you detach from the past hurt without necessarily saying the action was okay. It's for your freedom, releasing that burden.
Okay, freeing yourself. I like that. Then step 5, accepting where you are right now. Sounds simple, but again, there's a nuance.
Similar to forgiveness, you can't really force acceptance if you're still weighed down by the past. Those old wounds need attention first.
Because the present is built on the past, in a way.
Exactly, but a practical starting point, the Source suggests, is when a negative memory or self-criticism pops up, you tell yourself, I am not that person anymore.
Oh, that's useful. A little affirmation to bring you back to now.
Yeah, it acknowledges your growth. Okay, step 6. Forming relationships where you feel loved and appreciated. This feels like a natural outcome of the inner work.
Right, because this isn't meant to be done in isolation.
Not at all. As you change and grow in self-love, you'll naturally gravitate towards people who reflect that back to you, who get your journey.
And maybe some old relationships shift.
They might, naturally. It's not about judging them, but about seeking connections that truly nourish you and appreciate the love you're learning to embody.
Makes sense. Okay, final step, number 7. Practicing the kind of love you aspire to receive. This feels powerful. The Source mentions people waiting for the one.
Yeah, that common idea. And the insight is, the best way to find that love is to be that love. Be the one.
Be the change you want to see, essentially.
Pretty much. It's that principle of like attracts like. If you practice being kind, compassionate, understanding, you naturally draw that energy towards you.
You create the environment for the relationships you want.
Exactly. You take responsibility for it.
So this whole path from seeing our needs to becoming more giving, to embodying this deeper love, and then these steps, it feels quite complete, actually. Practical.
It does lay out a real roadmap, and the way the Source wraps it up is quite beautiful, reminding us that we're born lovable.
Yeah, that we're meant to be perfectly loved, completely lovable, and that losing touch with that is what's unnatural.
That's such a hopeful perspective. It reframes the whole journey. It's not about becoming lovable, but about returning to our true nature.
Reconnecting with who we really are underneath it all.
And this isn't some new idea. People have walked this path for ages. It's achievable.
Okay, so let's just recap quickly. We've journeyed from love based on need through a stage of more selfless giving and empathy towards this idea of unconditional love, boundless compassion, inner fulfillment.
And we looked at those concrete steps: inner connection, facing obstacles, healing wounds, forgiveness, acceptance, choosing supportive relationships, and practicing the love we seek.
Right. And that final thought to leave you with, which I think is really powerful, this idea from the Source that your inherent state right now is one of being perfectly loved and completely lovable.
Yeah, think about that. What if the journey isn't about gaining something you lack, but about remembering something you already are?